Coming up this week on Success Won't Come Calling.
Cystic fibrosis or not, rugby is the best sport going around. What it can teach you on and off the field in terms of work ethic, discipline, all the life values, it shaped who the person I am today. So, condition or no condition, I endorse the game of rugby for anyone out there wanting to be involved in a community sport, be a part of a community, and understand there are values that this sport can give you that I personally believe not all sports can.
Hello friends, Simon Gibson here. Welcome to SWCC. If you like the podcast, please click subscribe and you will know the moment every episode lands. My guest this week on the podcast is Nathan Charles. Nathan is a former rugby player who's played at elite level in Australia, England and France. Nathan is the only elite sports person to have played competitively despite having the condition of cystic fibrosis. Nathan, since he's taken his well-earned retirement, still is an ambassador for Cystic Fibrosis Australia, and he's moved into business as the CEO of Rugby WA. I'm really glad to welcome Nathan to the podcast. Nathan, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Excellent. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate the time difference between Australia and England, and no doubt as I look out my window to the left here, it's quite sunny, and I can't imagine that being the case where you are right now. So.
Well, do you know what? It's surprising, but it's rather nice here as well today. But I've spent enough time in Western Australia to know that we certainly won't be competing too well with yourself. But we're so glad that you've joined us, Nathan, and thank you for sharing your story with us. Let's kick off then with looking back at your resume. I mean, I only gave the briefest summary of your achievements in rugby. You performed at the highest level as a Wallaby, also for Western Force, and you played in Melbourne also, as well as in Europe. Just focusing purely on your sporting achievements. Now that you've retired, how do you reflect upon your years as an elite level rugby player?
It's actually a really good question, Simon. I mean, I'm only 4 years removed and I'm 33, and part of me still thinks if I was physically able, I could still be, competing at that level. Unfortunately, I'm not, or fortunately, I'm not. Depends which way you want to look at it. I don't think I've been separated from the game long enough to be able to fully sit back and acknowledge what I have achieved. But in saying that, I'm getting there in the sense of, I achieved my lifelong goal of becoming a Wallaby and playing for the Wallabies. Most recently I was just at my mum and dad's place in Sydney, and, in Dad's office, he's got up my first Wallaby jersey framed, along with my Gloucester jersey, my Bath jersey, Western Force jersey, and he's also got my Wallaby cap in a case as well, which he keeps there. So, when I go back there and have a look at that, I actually sit back and go, you know what, I have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming a professional rugby player, but also becoming a Wallaby. And times like that, you do sort of sit back, have a think, have a chat with mum and dad, and go, what I've done is pretty great, and I've loved every second of it. There has been challenges, injuries, selections, all the things behind the scenes that people don't see. But, I've lived a great life, travelled around the world because of the sport, and got to play in front of, tens of thousands of people, either cheering you or booing you, whichever way. It's fantastic. So, obviously played 7 seasons with the Western Force. Then moved to Europe, played with Clermont in France for a short period in the year that they actually won the Top 14, which was just an incredible experience. Then spent about 18 months over 2 seasons with Bath in England, which again was fantastic. Beautiful place to live, great people, and I have very fond memories of the place. And actually, fingers crossed, with travel this year, I'll be heading back there for one of my good teammates' weddings in August. So I'll be looking forward to getting back there and enjoying some time. And then on my way out, I actually came back via Melbourne Rebels for just a very short period, knowing I was going to retire. They just needed some injury cover, and I thought, why not? And that was sort of the end of my career in 2018. So was a 10-year career and a few games and quite a few injuries later, I decided to hang up the boots at 29.
Well, I'm fascinated by what you've just said about particularly that issue of big crowds, because what is it right that when you made your debut for Western Force, that was in front of a crowd of 20,000, wasn't it?
It was, and in WA, we have similar stadiums to some of the stadiums in the UK's capacity was 20,000. So it was a sellout crowd. It was against the Stormers, and I came on with 15 minutes to go, and we actually David Hill kicked a field goal after the buzzer to win the game, and that was the first game the Force had won that season. So it was a very memorable moment in front of a fantastic crowd. They call them the Sea of Blue over here, Simon. It's just a crowd of blue, and they're the most loyal supporters going around. So big shout out to the Sea of Blue fans.
Well, I mean, we were just talking off camera, but I've one of our businesses in the group is in Western Australia, so I know the Western Australian people really well, and they love their sports. They love the footy, they love the rugby, they love the cricket, and they're fanatical about it. So I can only imagine what a feeling that must have been to trot out in front of 20,000 of them. Nathan, your achievements as an elite sportsman would be ever so impressive, regardless of what your background was. But when you were 3 months old, you were diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. I guess let's take it right from the top. Do you want to just summarize for our audience what the cystic fibrosis condition is, first of all?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've answered this question that many times, Simon, and it's a very scripted answer. I mean, the best way for people to go and have a look is to go online and actually research. The issue with that is you get a very scientific answer. And cystic fibrosis, I'll just start by saying, affects everyone very differently. But essentially, cystic fibrosis is a genetic condition in Caucasians. It's the most common genetic condition in Caucasians worldwide. It affects the lungs, the respiratory system, and the digestive system. It affects the respiratory system by creating a thick, sticky mucus in the airways, which clogs the airways and causes irreversible lung damage, and in some cases an early death. And it also impacts the digestive system, whereas people with CF can't tend to digest enzymes or nutrients through food, so then they have to take additional pancreatic enzymes to assist with getting the vitamins and the minerals into the system and whatnot. So, and as I said, it impacts everyone in a different way. And I'm, as much as I'm an ambassador for the condition, I've also got to be realistic in the sense that I'm very fortunate with my condition, that I've been allowed to do what I can do. And this isn't a reality for everybody with the condition. So, I always have a positive mindset about succeeding and pushing through the barriers. No matter if you've got cystic fibrosis or not, I do a lot of inspirational, motivational, and overcoming adversity talks, similar to what we're doing today. And I always like to talk about the power of a positive mindset, and knowledge is power. And in this case, with cystic fibrosis, understanding what your condition is, how it impacts you, and what you need to do to overcome this challenge. So, as I said before, Simon, it impacts people in different ways.
Yes. Talk to me about your earliest recollection of when that challenge you've just mentioned, when you realised you had a challenge to overcome, because obviously you were diagnosed very early in your life. Where was the first time that it emerged to you that you had a challenge which your mates didn't?
It's actually a really good question. I usually get asked the question of what's it like to have cystic fibrosis, where I can't answer that, where this question is actually the first realisation or acknowledgement of something I can. I was very, I guess, mum and dad were very shocked at 3 months of age. When I was diagnosed, they had no idea what it was. So from hearing mum and dad talk about it to me, what it was like, they just had no idea. Again, they went online and researched. It was a very grim outlook. So I was very much cotton-wooled, I guess, as a baby. Very much hygiene and whatnot was very well looked after. But in saying that, mum and dad never stopped me from doing anything or participating. I guess my first real realization was when I was at boarding school and I was left up to my own devices. Being teenager, being rebellious, I stopped doing the things that I should have been doing in terms of medication. I got sick, and then that led to me potentially not playing rugby on a weekend. And that was my first, oh, wow, if I want to actually play the sport that I love doing, I need to look after myself. So that made me understand what my condition was more so, how it impacted me, and what I needed to do to compete at the top level. And ultimately, that's what I wanted to do.
Rugby is such an interesting sport choice for someone who has your condition, because I had another rugby player, Paul Skull.
Simon, I'll just interrupt you there. Rugby is the best sport going around, whether you've got CF or not. So it was an easy decision. So I grew up in a rugby-loving family. Cystic fibrosis or not, it's the best sport going around. What it can teach you on and off the field in terms of work ethic, discipline, all the life values, and then what it can actually teach you on the field in terms of the physicality and teamwork and whatnot. It shaped who the person I am today. So, condition or no condition, I endorse the game of rugby for anyone out there wanting to be involved in the community sport, be a part of a community, and understand there are values that this sport can give you that I personally believe not all sports can. So, but everyone's got to taste it and try for themselves.
You hit the nail on the head there with discipline, because I can really see the correlation there between the respect and the discipline which is required in the game of rugby, and how that's been something which you've lived your life by. Let's talk about the game first of all, because I was going to mention I had another rugby player on a little while ago, Paul Sculthorpe, and he made this exact same point, that compared to, say, soccer, particularly soccer in Europe, rugby is a game of respect and a game of routine and of discipline and of commitment. First of all, how did you have to apply those values to your to your life in order to become an elite rugby player?
Well, Simon, I knew to be able to be the best, you got to beat the best. So ultimately, I guided my career on some of the athletes that I'd met. I'd seen, you watch documentaries, you hear all these things about being very anal about preparation or not wanting to run on concrete because it's because of your knees or whatnot. So, and then how hard they train to get where they are. From an early age, I understood that if I wanted to become a Wallaby, I need to do things that others weren't doing or weren't willing to do, and break down those barriers, those pain barriers in particular, and also mental barriers, because you've actually got to want to do it. And when the going gets tough, you got to keep either going, or you're gonna beat it, or it's gonna beat you. So I just always had this mindset of nothing was ever going to get in my way of achieving my goals, and if I wanted something bad enough, I'd figure out a way to get there. So if my goal's here and then there's a brick wall that's sort of guiding me there, I'm either going to run through it and break that brick wall down, or I'm going to find an alternative route and get there some other way. So the brick wall route, it tends to hurt a bit more. So smarter, not harder was my philosophy when wanting to achieve goals. But, I think you touched on it before, that discipline to your outcome, whether it's sport or whether it's business or even health. It's integral in life, and it's a value that I live by.
What was the type of discipline you had to show just in terms of your daily routine? Because you mentioned earlier that, as we all did when we were teenagers, we weren't necessarily focusing on what was good for us, and that had some consequence for you in terms of your ability to in the short term continue down the sporting path you wanted to. What was when you were playing rugby, what was your daily routine like in terms of both the level of training which all elite rugby players have to commit to, but with you also factoring in ensuring that you were doing what you needed to do to keep on top of your condition?
Yeah, well, I'm a person of routine. And I think being at border and then went to college and whatnot, and then being in a professional environment, I've almost been institutionalized around the importance of routine. So it was finding something that worked for me, ensuring that I ticked all the right boxes in terms of making sure I had enough sleep from the night before and recovered well, and then being able to get up at a certain time to take medications, do all my antibiotics and whatnot before the day had started, and then ensuring I was prepped for the day coming ahead. So understanding what my day was going to be like, when I need to do my medications, how that was going to get done, and still tick off all the professional rugby requirements. And then I guess just describing what a normal week was like in game time. I guess if you sort of picture a pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid's the big base. That'd usually be a Monday, Tuesday, and the closer you got to a game, the less you would do physically. It more became a mental game or mental training, just ensuring that you're across all your strategies, your tactics and whatnot. So I'd work very hard early in the week physically and get all those knocks and everything I need to do early on. And then later in the week, it was just about focusing on the game, the strategy and the tactics, ensuring I knew my role. And, Bill Belichick says it's the best, says it best, is just do your role. But if everyone in your team does their role, you should come out with a pretty positive outcome. And again, Simon, I think that's you being a business person yourself, understand that everyone has roles in the team, whether it's sport or not. If you have the right people committed to the right outcome, then you should achieve the positive result that you're searching for.
Well, there's a couple of things that have resonated with me there from a business perspective. Definitely what you've just said, Nathan, is right. That I think particularly when you're leading in any walk of life, whether it's sport, whether it's business, whatever it is, the leader has a certain role, and those he leads also have a role, and they shouldn't get in each other's way. It has to be defined. Everyone has to be clear on what their goals are, what their objectives are, and they have to be supported and motivated to achieve them. But the other point which really interested me, Nathan, was this issue of discipline and routine, because I'm a big planner. I'm very committed to routine. I plan every day. And occasionally it's put to me that planning and showing discipline restricts freedom. And I totally disagree with that. I think it makes you much more free, because by sticking to routine, by planning well, and by being disciplined, you allow yourself more time to be creative. You win time back to do other things and to improve and to reskill and to fine-tune your skills. Is that something you agree with?
I mean, I think it's all in the look. It's all in the eye of the beholder, Simon. Really, because again, business, personal, health, whatever. What's your strategic objective? Where do you want to get in life? I'm a very driven and ambitious person, so for me, it's as a young CEO and wanting to progress further in the business world. I know I have to put a lot of work in now, and my view is if I put the hard work in now, I'll become an expert in my field, and later on, I won't have to put as much of that grunt in there, which will allow for that freedom. So what's a piss poor planning leads to a poor performance, or piss, something along those lines. So I'm a planner, and I work hard, and I also think by having routine for me and having a plan enables me to have more freedom, because I get the things done that I need to get done within the required time frame. And I set myself boundaries as well, in the sense of, all right, it has to be done by this time, and I'll do what it takes to get it done. If I don't, I have to invest more time into that. And then that allows me, or impacts my social life or my exercise or whatever it is. But yeah, I'm a big planner as well, and I like routine because I get shit done.
Yeah.
And I work well under pressure too, where if I don't plan, I seem to go, oh, well, what's my purpose today? What's my vision? What am I trying to achieve? And I seem to float a little bit. That's me personally, but I still do think it's in the eye of the beholder, and everyone works differently. But I do like routine when it comes to work and whatnot, and having a bit of a plan. So I like having that plan of attack. And then I've got a little to my right here. I've got a little piece of paper with my to-do list on what I need to achieve, and it feels good when I'm ticking things off there. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the key word you've used there is vision, because everyone does work differently, and not everybody is a tenacious planner. But I think if you don't have that vision, that purpose in terms of what a good day, what a good year, what a good career looks like, it's very difficult to achieve your potential because you've not defined yourself what it is. So I would say to anyone, you don't need, a 10-page business plan. You don't need a huge telephone directory size life plan. But what you need is a purpose. You need a goal. And without that, I think it's difficult to be the best you can be.
Completely agree with that. To be fair, I haven't done it this year, but years gone past, I would sit down at the start of the year and do my goals for the year. And that was rugby related, socially related, personal development. I'm always big on personal development too. I think the day you stop learning is the day you die, or the day you stop wanting to learn. Whether it's about cryptocurrency, which I have no idea about, or whether it's about constitutions. That just was on my note list there. So it's always about bettering yourself, and I'm a big believer in that. You never, and this is also, I found a bit of a con in my life. In the sense that you're never at your finished product. And that high performance mindset I've found being an elite athlete is the inability sometimes to celebrate those successes because you're not the finished product. You're always aiming for that excellence or perfectionism, which you're never going to achieve. But when you actually achieve certain milestones or goals or something on your goal list, you need to celebrate those milestones. And that's something which I've struggled with massively coming from professional sport into the business world. Because in the professional sporting world, you have a simple metric each weekend, which is win or lose. If you win, it's a great feeling. That's your metric. That's what you're going out to do. And that's every single week. And then you go to your next week, whether you win or lose, you've got your reviews, you've got your systems, you've got your procedures in place that you do no matter what. Where in the business world, a lot of the successes you have aren't as, I guess, as, I don't know, maybe it's not as publicised, or
they're not always as euphoric. They're not always as they're not always the most obvious cause for celebration. But you are right; it's so important that you pause to reflect upon what you've achieved, because if you don't know what success looks like, it's very difficult to know if you're headed in the right direction.
Correct. And I'm actually just going through a strategic reset process at the moment, and I find this kind of work very exciting. I really enjoy growth and strategy and whatnot, because it is that vision and something we're working towards. But that stop to sort of smell the roses and acknowledge success is so important too. And I've made it a big emphasis this year for my team. And we're actually doing one on Friday, a bit of a team bonding building session, and just having a quarterly check-in to say, hey, this is where we're at in comparison to our strategic plan. Where are we up? Where are we tracking? Are we tracking well? We are. Win, lose or draw, let's enjoy this. Let's stop. Let's have a break. Let's have lunch together, and let's just enjoy each other's company, because we're doing bloody good work, and we have to acknowledge that. So that's something that I'm looking forward to this Friday with my team. And something I never did enough of during my career. To your first point is having a look back at my career and acknowledging what I've achieved. I didn't do that enough throughout my career. I was always just, all right, let's move on to the next. How can I get better? Instead of actually going, no, I've achieved a goal. Let's celebrate that. Let's enjoy the moment. So that was probably one of my biggest lessons, I'd say, having finished that first career of mine, is you got to enjoy success, because no one else will, and it can be very short-lived.
It can. I think, though, there's something you've described there, which I see in a lot of successful people, which is that you don't tend to dwell on moments, whether they are very positive moments or moments of frustration. You keep moving forward. So the way I try and look at it, because one of the things I'm really proud of is that we've started businesses in Australia, in Inspiring Group. But it wasn't as if when we opened the doors on our first business in Perth that we just sort of popped the champagne and just sat about for a few weeks you were talking about how great we were. It was more that you continue to feel that sense of pride and you use that as the platform to drive yourself on more. So you should constantly celebrate success and also not allow past frustrations and failures to knock you off course. So I think that having that moving forward rather than stopping and dwelling is consistent with both enjoying success, but also not letting failure hold you up.
And it's also a big value in rugby too, Simon. Let's not get away from that. You're always going forward. So, you always see those goalposts and you want to get in and score a try. But that's exactly to my point just before about these quarterly check-ins. It's to actually track how we're going and to acknowledge people that have done great work within the business because, even though I sit at the top of the tree, I would not be seeing the success if it wasn't for the people out there in the front line doing all the hard work, and they're the ones that should be getting the acknowledgement and the reward. And that's how I see myself, and I see the traits of a good leader. It's not someone that does everything, it's the person that surrounds himself with even better people and fills those gaps. And I know where the gaps are, and that's why I want to fill it with people that help me get better, but I'm obviously wanting to help them get better too. So that's how I see my leadership, and I like to empower the people around me to do their job and have that clarity and go hell for leather because I'll tell you what, our team's done a fantastic job and I'm really excited about the future of rugby in Western Australia.
Sorry to interrupt this episode. Podcast today is brought to you by Accident Claims Lawyers. ACL are the leading personal injury lawyers in Australia and in the UK. If you've had an accident which you didn't cause, you need to contact Accident Claims Lawyers today for a no obligation free chat. And if they do agree to work with you, ACL will offer you a no-win, no-fee agreement to make sure that you're fully protected. Now it's back to the podcast. Well, let's talk a little about that because you're CEO of Rugby WA. So you've made a number of points there about what your role is, but what's the purpose of Rugby WA? What's the purpose of your role as CEO? What are the goals you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so the purpose of Rugby WA is to grow, develop and foster the game of rugby in Western Australia. So essentially we're responsible for the sport of rugby in WA. And that's the whole state. We run competitions, development, participation, education, and also pathways. So we're constantly trying to grow numbers, but also the quality of people wanting to play our game. And, there are a number of challenges in regards to WA as an AFL state. So we are competing with other team sports, but I don't see it that way. I see AFL as the number one sport here. They're the whale shark. And I just think, well, if we can be smart about what we're doing, rugby's a sport for all shapes and sizes. So why don't we hang off the whale shark like a suckerfish and pick up those people that, don't fit their mold, because we have a mold for every single person. And I think, one of the values or one of the benefits, because I feel like there's quite a few, of me being in the role that I'm in right now is the fact that I've gone through that system. I can resonate and I can understand what rugby can do for you. And I touched on this earlier. It shaped the person that I am today, both on and off the field, and it's provided so many opportunities for me to travel, to meet new people, to learn values and to know what it's like to work hard to achieve a goal. So there are so many things that this sport has taught me and shaped the person that I am today. And you know what? I owe everything to rugby.
It sounds to me that what you're doing with Rugby WA is that you're bringing a degree of new perspective to the role that you've got, and you're seeing opportunities for change. Do you think that both your experience, that resilience you've built up as an elite rugby player, particularly managing cystic fibrosis, do you think that's brought something to your mindset in business and your outlook in terms of having that passion and that ambition to implement positive change?
Absolutely. I got appointed to this role at the age of 32, and that's quite young to be a CEO. And there's a lot of things that more experienced CEOs could have brought to the table, but there is also a number of things that that I possess that they don't. And I mentioned that before, and one of those is that high performance mindset around the game of rugby, but also being close to it, and then some of the experiences of overcoming adversity throughout my personal life. But yeah, I think one of the things is I had a 3-year plan, and I like to theme my years. The first year's theme was change. We undertook a lot of change within the first year, and it was a massively challenging year. Second year's theme is embed. So we want to embed all those changes. And then year 3 is we want to push forward. So those are the themes that I like to create around the office environment, so people understand where we're going. And that obviously fuels the direction, the vision, and then it's the how-to. So that's when the operational and work plans come into play, and we can be a bit more measured about what we actually are doing. But the other thing is, like Simon, I'm not afraid to deal with conflict, and with change comes a lot of it. I mean, it's just transparent communication, right? You just got to have that conversation, whether it's hard or not. If there's a reason and rationale behind what you're doing, whether people like it or not, if you have that direction and rationale and also the data to make an informed decision, I could never blame someone for coming to me and going, look, this is the direction we're going. This is why we're doing it. This is how I believe we're going to do it. And this is why I'm making this decision. Whether you like it or not, it is what it is. And you can always go back to that. You might be right and you might be wrong. But, I've been with contracts told that, I'm not going to get contracted or whatnot. And they told me the reasons. And I just go, as a more mature athlete, I just go on, well, I can't really argue with that, to be fair. That's their prerogative, and it's business at the end of the day. So you've got to be able to separate business and personal. And I feel like I've got the mindset to be able to do that.
Yeah. In terms of managing conflict gets worse if it's allowed to fester. So the ability to tackle conflict, to confront it, to address issues and to solve them is, I think, what leadership's all about. If there's a problem, you have to tackle it. A problem does not get better by ignoring it. The other point is in terms of decision-making and in terms of managing change is, in my view, the leader is earns his or her corn for making decisions and for setting the strategic roadmap and then empowering his team to achieve it. So no one's going to thank the leader in the long run if they don't make decisions which, on the basis of the data and the facts in their possession, is the right one. Now, as you've rightly said, through the lens of hindsight or through development outside of your control, it may emerge in the future that you should have taken the other decision, but that doesn't make it a bad one. So you should never be too self-critical, I don't think. I always try and avoid self-criticism by applying the benefits of hindsight. Make the decision, base it on the best information you've got at the time, and back yourself to achieve it.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate. I've got an incredibly astute board that I obviously have to bounce or get endorsement for some of these decisions. Some I don't, but operational items I don't, but strategic items I do. And they're the ones that are asking all the hard questions. And if I can, get their support, then I've done my job. And that's what they're there for as well, is to challenge me and to ensure that I am making the right decisions based on the evidence and data that I do have. So that's actually something I really enjoy, because I don't mind being challenged, and I don't mind being wrong either, because if there's a better way that can be done, please, I always encourage my staff, within the right way, is to challenge the decisions that are made. If you have the evidence, you have a solution or a better scenario, please provide that to me, because I don't sit here going, I'm God, I know everything that's going to happen and whatnot. What I'm basing my decisions on all the information that I have at hand. If you have alternative stuff, let's work it out together and let's do it together. But I always just say to anyone in the community or whatnot, don't just come to me and whinge. If you want something, come to me with a solution. and come to me with the information that are going to back up that solution. Because if it is the right way to go, hey, I'm going to look at that, and if it's the best thing for the sport and the business, there's a good chance that we'll adopt it too. So that's what I always say to people. I don't want to hear whinging. I want to hear, come to me with an issue, but come to me with a solution as well. And if you don't have a solution, to be honest, I don't really want to hear it. And I'm pretty cutthroat like that because I just don't want to waste my time.
That's right. And talking about problems to an extent, I guess, is needed, but over talking them is negative, because it takes you out of finding that way forward if you just keep embellishing what the problem is. How about just if we could try and apply that to your success as an elite athlete in rugby? You obviously had a problem which was outside of your control in terms of having cystic fibrosis. And it seems to me from what you've described that you were a solution finder in terms of both managing your own clinical condition and applying that to becoming an elite sportsman. Have I got that right, that you've been a solution finder all of your life?
Yeah, I'm very solutions focused. I just don't like sympathy, and I don't like feeling sorry for yourself, and I don't want anyone else to feel sorry for me either. So I have this belief that if you want something bad enough, you'll go out there and do what it takes to achieve. And I think I mentioned before, if there's a brick wall, you either knock down the brick wall or you find an alternative route to get to your goal. So, I guess I've been brought up with the power of positive mindset, and knowledge is power. So however you want to interpret that, that's, again, up to you. But, I guess the discipline towards training hard. And I could probably actually turn it on its head, to be fair, because I was so obsessed with becoming a Wallaby when I was a kid. That probably aided my cystic fibrosis to the extent where I was so worked hard and disciplined to achieve that goal. But I was like, well, if I don't look after my health in the same regard as I'm trying to achieve my physical goals, then I'm not going to achieve my physical goals. So my health is the limiting factor there. So, okay, got to work that backwards. To get to this point, I need to look after this. So it was it's a holistic, very much a holistic view on life, and understand, like I said before, knowledge is power. Understanding my health was a limiting factor. That's the biggest risk to me achieving my goal of becoming a Wallaby. So how am I going to combat or mitigate that to achieve that? So, as I said, it can be broken down so many different ways, Simon, but, I just revert back to knowledge is power, and the power of a positive mindset can take you as far as you want to get to.
It really can. And I completely believe that. Let's just try and widen this out. The reality is we don't have equality of opportunity in life. It's very unfortunate, but certain people, certain groups of people, for reasons outside of their control, will be starting at different places on the running track. And that could be due to a whole range of reasons. We don't have equality of opportunity. And it always strikes me that truly exceptional people, and I think you are, mate, in terms of what you've achieved and what you continue to achieve, will, off their own volition, be able to find that strength and resilience in order to achieve their goals and effectively to catch up and take over others around the running track. Some may not. My view is that the way we help people find those solutions is for more people like you to talk the way you do, front and center, because really challenges that we all face, there's a similar process that can be followed in terms of finding the right outcome. And to hear role models such as yourself talk about how that mindset is developed and how discipline and self-respect and commitment and clarity all come together to provide you with that platform to proceed. I think people need to hear those stories more. So that's why I'm so pleased that you talk, aside from your role as CEO of Rugby WA, you talk to other corporates and to other groups of people about your life and your story.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy doing it. Two, if I can impact one person in this world for the better, I mean, that's not many people get that opportunity. So, I'm very humbled by that. three, it gives me opportunities. It gives me exposure and that enables me to educate, but it also gives me financial benefits too. I do talks to corporates. So there are a number of benefits, but the biggest one for me is to be able to share my story. And like I said before, if I can just impact one person's life, then that is significant, and something I'm really, really, I guess, humbled by, to be given that opportunity. All I can really answer is what I've been through and my individual story, because I know that and I know what's worked for me, and that's not going to work for everyone else. But as you mentioned just now, it's if people understand what I've been through, the adversity that I've faced, and mechanisms that I've used to overcome.
Exactly.
I might take 5% of what Nathan's done from that, 10% here, and try in my own different way, and then I've got there. So you learn something from people every day, and if I can give that, then how good. So very humbled and privileged to be able to be in the position that I am, to do what I do, and to hopefully pass on some words of wisdom.
And I know that you will do, because again, it's about your story is solution focused, and it's about how do you achieve your goals, and to kick those brick walls down. So that's where I was going in terms of the process that you follow, because as you say, every one of us has our own challenges in our life. And I do believe that there are certain principles that we can all apply to any situation where we're struggling that helps us along the journey. And certainly there's a number of things in your story, Nathan, that really resonate with me. I would be interested just to share some of my experiences in business, particularly in Australia. One of the reasons, because we started our first business in Australia in 2017, and we're just about to open our third now. And I'd sort of traveled literally everywhere in Australia, and I'd sort of done my due diligence on the different cities, the different states, the sort of pros and cons in each. And I know you've lived in different parts of Australia. The reason we went for Western Australia is because we identified that it was, first of all, it's a beautiful place. It's got a perfect climate. It's got wonderful people. I think what we also identified was that it was perhaps, from a business perspective, quite set in its ways. And we viewed that as a very positive opportunity to disrupt the market in our particular sectors. Now, what you said earlier about this year one being change and it being a tough year, I was smiling slightly when you said that, because that's exactly what we encountered. We encountered it in terms of clients, in terms of, to some extent, staff, other professional partners, that sort of thing. But we've found that by sticking to our guns, to sticking to the business case behind all of the new processes and marketing strategies, for example, working practices that we're bringing in, stick to our guns, keep talking to the team and to everyone we interact with about why we're doing it and the positives for everyone in working in a certain way and implementing certain strategies. We feel we're in a pretty good place now, because we feel we've quite successfully disrupted the market. We're in the legal profession in Western Australia. So we found that need to change, but generally that people have been quite receptive, and we're really pleased with the outcome we've achieved. And it sounds like you're well on that journey yourself.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It's been a big learning curve, the transition, and I thoroughly enjoy business, and the management of a business too, the whole holistic operations. So it's been very enjoyable, challenging, but rewarding in the same way. So yeah.
Do you see the same thing, or did you see the same thing in terms of WA or Rugby WA being perhaps a bit set in its ways and in need of a shake-up?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I was given some directives from my board, but from my perspective, having looked at the game in WA versus a New South Wales or Queensland, we are not there yet, and there are reasons for it. And it did require change, and it did need a bit of a shake-up, which I have well and truly given it in year one. But yeah, I think with anything, you either need to keep people on their toes, or there needs to be a certain amount of change to keep pushing forward. And as I said, I did that in year one, so it was a pretty exhausting year, but very rewarding in some sense, as I mentioned.
Yeah. Tell me about what it felt like when you pulled on that Wallabies jersey.
Oh, it was just a dream come true. It was Melbourne at it's now called Marvel Stadium. It was Etihad when I played there. It was against France, and I got on for the last 6 minutes, and we ended up winning 6-0. It was a pretty dire game in terms of entertainment, but it was just an absolute dream come true. I had my best mates fly from WA and Sydney. Mum and Dad were there, and they got to come to the change rooms afterwards and see me be presented with my cap. And I actually ran on the field with a guy called Laurie Weeks, who we played at Sydney University together, club rugby. He was a tight end and I was a hooker. So to be actually able to run on the field with one of your great mates at the same time making your debut, geez, there's not much better stories than those in rugby, in particular for our club and for our lives too. So, it was just an absolute dream come true. And as I mentioned before, Dad's got my first Wallaby jersey framed along with my Wallaby Test cap in his office. So it's an absolute dream come true.
I saw on your Instagram, you posted, I would recommend to everyone they check out your Instagram. There's some fantastic videos and whatnot on there. But I saw one where your mum and dad were actually talking, and they're obviously fantastic people. How important has your family support been through your career so far?
Oh, absolutely integral to my success. They've been there every single step of the way. They've been incredibly supportive, and they're responsible they're the ones responsible for giving me this mindset of being able to achieve anything you want in life. As a kid, they drove me all around Sydney, New South Wales, sent me on trips to pursue my dreams, and did absolutely everything they could for me. So I love Mum and Dad, and they're a huge part of where I got to, and always supporting me. So, incredible people. I'm very privileged to call them my parents.
Well, credit to them and credit to you for everything you've achieved, Nathan. Let's bring it right up to the present day then. So in terms of your condition, what does a day look like for you now? Is it any different to what it was, say, 5 years ago in terms of your medication and in terms of what you're able to do physically?
When I was playing professionally, exercise and keeping the lungs moving is very important. So, I was out there training every day, so I didn't have to think really too much about airway clearance. Whereas now I'm getting a bit older, the body hurts a little bit more. I have to be a bit more alternative with what exercises I'm doing. And actually after this, I'm going to go for a little 5K trot just to keep myself going. But, it's been a bit of a challenge with the transition. I do take a significant amount of medications every day, pretty much the same as what I was doing whilst I was playing, if not just a little bit more. So in terms of routine and whatnot, I'm pretty well entrenched. But, the challenge is that airway clearance. And now that I've stopped playing rugby, it's, you can go out for dinner on a Monday or Tuesday night, have a couple of drinks and whatnot. When I was playing, I would never do that. So just balance, moderation, everything in moderation is the way I live past it. But I think of late I've probably pushed that envelope a little bit, enjoyed life a little too much, the summer conditions of Australia. So, like I said, it's just that balance and moderation and trying to keep myself as healthy as possible.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind me asking this, but I know that one of the facts in the data about cystic fibrosis is that it can have a detrimental impact on life expectancy. Obviously you're still a young man. You're clearly in great shape still. You're leading a very fulfilling life. I just wondered how do you apply your mindset to the data that you see around life expectancy? How does that change your outlook, or does it change your outlook?
No, well, you know what, Simon, apart from doing podcasts or, talks or whatnot, I really don't think about my condition at all. I would never have thought about life expectancy or a number or anything like that in my whole life. It's only when other people bring it up, to be honest, because I don't know any different, and I've lived my life how I've lived my life, and trying to live it to the full every single day, irrelevant of, I'll probably be shaped because of the condition, but irrelevant. I've just had this mindset around living and doing it to my best ability, and not letting anything get in my way. And, life is life, and people go one way or the other. And if I've lived a bloody good life and done some good things, then so be it. I mean, I see myself being here for a long time, and it's the best way I can answer that.
I think there's something we can all learn from that, Nathan, because at the end of the day, we don't know what's around the corner. And that's why having that purpose and that drive and applying what you can control as productively as you possibly can has to underpin leading a fulfilled life, because we don't know what's going to happen. All we can do is control what is within our control, and then enjoy ourselves and live as fulfilled a life as we can, because the end is going to come for us all at some point.
At some point, yeah. I try not to think about that. It's a bit grim, but I'm coming across I like to think I'm the eternal optimist, but I have my bad days too. But it's during those bad times or bad days that you got to go, you know what, I've got good friends, I've got good family, I've got a good job, and those things are trying to take you out of that sort of dark space or negative mindset, because we all do go through it. And there are some days I go, I'm having a bad health day. I go, why did I have to get stuck with this? Why can't I just be normal? But then I go, well, actually, what is normal? Everyone's got their shit in life, and you're dealing with yours, and you've got the ability to make a difference in life and into this world. And I just kind of go, mate, pull your head out of your ass and get on with it, put a smile on your face and push forward. So.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, whatever challenge anyone is facing, self-pity probably doesn't get anyone anywhere. And what is much more productive is moving forward to the best of your ability, and closer to your purpose, and applying what skills and capabilities you've got as best you can. And it's obvious, Nathan, because I've got to let you go shortly, but it's obvious that you've made a lifetime of that. You've had a sporting career where you've achieved ever so much, and that you've continued into business, and you've clearly applied. You've covered this at the start. You've clearly applied the discipline and the skill and the communication and the teamwork, which is, the platform for good sports and success. You've clearly continued that into your business life as well. So well done to you. And I think if you are finding a moment to reflect, you've got lots to reflect upon, and you should feel very proud of yourself. And I've certainly found it very enlightening and engaging talking to you today. And I'm not surprised that you add the value that you do as a speaker as well as a CEO of Rugby WA. So well done, mate.
Cheers. Thanks, Simon. Thanks for having us on. I appreciate your time, and I've thoroughly enjoyed having a chat with you.
You too. Nathan, all the very best to you.